Welcome back, and this is what we're going to build to assist you in composition in your projects in the future. And once you've built this, you can import this into any After Effects project that you're doing and just leave it on top as a pre-composition. So basically this is my composition here. I've got a camera and I've got my composition grid, and I've got that locked at the moment. Now you may say to yourself, I'll just hide that. You may say to yourself, well, why don't I just use the title safe and action safe for the title safe around the side? Well, unfortunately in After Effects you can't actually do anything with that relative to visibility. You're stuck with the fact that it now if I just bring an image in, probably the best, we'll just right click, transform, fit to comp, height. Okay, so the title safe area around the edge is action safe and title safe box. You're stuck with it. It's you can't reduce that in transparency, and the shot itself starts to get really cluttered. Well, by having an overlay like this, and if I switch off the title safe and action safe, you can see that we can actually bring up our T for transparency, and we can really drop that down to something that isn't going to clutter up the image, and we can still see the action safe, the title safe and action safe areas around the edge here, and we can also still see the rule of thirds grid that we've drawn there, and we can literally drop it until it's just visible. And so as we're working on this image now, we've got that information in place, and we can bring it in and bring it out as bright as we need it. Well, you can't do that with the title safe setting in After Effects. It's full opacity or off, and that is all that you have. So let's go ahead and create this grid. So we'll start with a new comp. I'll just reset After Effects. We'll go new project here, and we'll start with a new composition, and we'll call this one, let's call this one main comp, and we'll just check the settings that we use there. PAL D1 square, I think that's fine for what we need. It's all fairly self-explanatory there, but you know, it's really not our main concern here. So if we bring up our title and action safe grid, we can see that it's overlaying on top of the image here. Now if I change my comp settings to a widescreen square pixels, and I'll just bring that down in size, we'll go to 720 by 395 on that. That's our widescreen, and we'll probably just leave it at that. I'll show you later how to quickly scale to suit whatever resolution you might be using, but we're going to use that as our template for our elements. So I'll just give ourselves a little bit of space here. And the first element we're going to do is our action safe, and so we'll create a new solid, and we'll make it comp size, make it white, and we'll call it action safe. And we're going to double click on the rectangle tool, which will create a rectangle mask. I'll switch on the visibility for the masks, and you'll see there that we have our mask around the edge. I'll control T to bring up our scale. Now what we're going to do is scale using control and shift so that it scales. We're holding down control and shift. I'll bring that in a little bit, and what we want to do is just line it up with our action safe box there. And once we've done that, I'll bring this up a little bit, we will invert that selection. And so there's our action safe, and what we can do is just go layer, we'll highlight the layer, the solid settings, and we'll change the color to try to go for a color that doesn't exist in regular artwork, unless you're working on something that is specifically that color, but you can always change this later on. So we'll just go for a pink there. So what we do now is just take the action safe layer and Control D to duplicate it, and then we're going to go into Layer, Solid Settings, and just change the layer color to a bright green, and we'll make this one Title Safe is the name, and just go OK to that. And what we need to do with that is create another mask, and if we double click on our rectangular tool, it creates a new mask, and then Control T. What we want to do, same operation, which is Shift. I want to bring that into the Title Safe area there, and switch off the invert, and on the second one we want to subtract. So it's add and subtract, and the bottom one is inverted as far as masks go. So there's our action safe and title safe. And so the next thing we need to do is create our compositing or composition grid for rule of thirds. And the easiest way to do that is the first thing we need to do is create a solid. So we go layer, layer, new solid, and we'll make this one white in color, and we'll just leave the name for now. We'll go OK, and what we're going to do is create we'll go into the solid settings. Rather than create a mask, we'll go width of 1 pixel and go OK. So we have our 1 pixel solid there, and where this, there's a little bit of mathematics here, but where this is a little tricky, probably the trickiest part of this process is the little bit of mathematics involved, but it's not too tricky. What we need to do is have a look at our comp settings, and our width is 720 pixels wide. So we need to work out 1/3 of 720. So if we just bring up our handy calculator, we go 720 divided by 3 equals 240. So what we can do is just punch in for position 240, and that is now going to be sitting 1/3 of the distance across our entire piece. So we Control D, bring up P for position, and we go 480. Let's just hide our title safe and action safe now. We don't need that anymore. We only needed it to create these outside ones. So there's our two composition grid for the verticals, and we're going to create another Control D, and this time we're going to go into layer, solid. We're going to change the width to 720, which is the width of our composition, and the height to 1 pixel, and that gives us one through the middle. Now you'll see it's offset because the position is where we last left it, because we copied it. So if we just bring up our position here, we're going to bring our position back to the center, which is 360, and we'll bring up our calculator again, and this time we'll just have a look at our comp settings. It's 395. So 395 divided by 3 equals 131. And so the position here is 131. And then you can quite easily times 263. So we'll Control D to create another one, P for position, and it's 263, and there's our grid. So what we need to do here now is create turn this into a pre-composition, layer, pre-comp, and we'll call this comp grid. We'll go OK to that. And so we now have our pre-comp here, and in our main comp we're going to create a camera, new camera, as if we're creating a new project, a new composition. And we'll go OK. So we have our camera now. We'll put our comp at the top, our comp grid at the top, and we'll turn it into a 3D layer. Now if we look at this from a side view, from a left view, here we have our layer, comp grid, and here we have our camera. Now the camera, if we look at the position of the camera, it has a position of -700, which means it's 700 from the center down here. It's 700. So what we need to do is take our comp grid position, and we want to go -699, which is one less than 700. And if we come right in here, you can see that it's just in front of the camera. So now if we come back to our camera view, active camera, our grid's disappeared, but we need to bring our scale, so bring up S for scale and bring it right down. Good thing to do is just go to 0 and then just try 0.5, 0.1. Okay, so 0.1 is a little too small, so we can go 0.05, which is half of that. Oh, sorry, 0.15, which is very close. And then we'll go 0.155. That's the wrong way, so we'll go 0.145, and that's getting very close there. You'll notice here in the viewport it says 0.1, but when you highlight it, it's 0.145, so it will actually hold that decimal information. So we can go maybe a little bit smaller. So let's change the 5 to a 4, a little bit smaller again to a 3, and there you have it. And now all we need to do is link or parent the comp grid to the camera. And then it doesn't matter where we go with the camera. If I go into camera view here and start to move the camera around, we're moving, we're arcing. I can bring up two views here, and you'll see that I'm moving the camera around left and right, forward and back. I can arc it around, and I can even change the point of interest, and it all stays, because you'll notice that this side is our active camera. I can even change that to camera 1. This side stays exactly the way it should in the grid. So we can bring our image in now. As if it was footage or graphic elements. We'll bring it down. There. I'll go back to one view. I can even turn the image into a 3D image. Move it around. Ooh. I need to lock that so that that doesn't happen. Lock your comp grid. But yeah, select the camera, and we can slide in and out, and compositionally we will always be able to make those composition decisions based on our grid. Now we can take our grid now, I'll just unlock it, take our grid, hit T, and just bring the transparency of it down. Whatever transparency you're happy with, and we can arc around, rotate. We can make our compositional decisions. Say I want to bring more focus to the nostril area there. So I could potentially zoom, like line it up, bring it in a little bit more. Just have it fill the screen a little bit, and there you have it. And then at any point you can just hide the grid. So that's a pretty handy little tool. I may even do a very quick tutorial to add to this particular post about how to create a similar grid in 3D Studio Max for when you're making compositional decisions in 3D Studio Max, because there is just as many bad compositional pieces out there in 3D as there are in 2D, and it's often because they didn't adhere to good compositional principles. So that's our comp grid, and I'll make this scene available so you'll be able to download it with the comp grid built into it, and you should be able to just import the comp grid into your own work. Now, I did mention before though, if we did have a different camera, say we go to our main comp here, and I'll reset, I'll just delete the camera actually, and I'll delete the image. So we've just got our comp grid here. I'm going to bring in a new camera, and I'm going to change the main comp settings to a at the moment it's a widescreen aspect. I'm going to bring it to a PAL D1 with square pixels. We'll go OK to that. Now if I just bring the grid up, just going to unlock that there, and I'm just going to go to a left view to see where my things have gone here. I think the issue there was that we were linked to the camera. I'm just going to have to reset everything. Just go back to an active camera now. So you'll see that the aspect ratio doesn't match. So what we can do in that instance, I've found that, you know, there are very few instances where scale is not going to get you out of trouble here. So just unlock the scale, bring the scale out wider, and bring it up a little taller. The grid always works perfectly, but if you switch on the title safe, you'll see that it actually matches as well. So it's sort of a little bit off center there. I think it's the scale that's done it. That's it there. Oh no, probably 110, and then position. Just going to bring it back a little, and that's it there. And that's literally all you need to do to match it to a new composition resolution. So that's a 4:3 resolution, but you'll see if I switch off the title safe in action, it works perfectly. There's no issues with that at all. So keep that grid in your repertoire, and then you can bring that into any comp that you're playing with, and it's very handy. So that's it for me, and I hope you've enjoyed a little bit of composition, and hopefully in the future I'm going to do a little bit more in-depth study of compositional decisions and principles, and hopefully you'll start to implement these things in your work and start to see an improvement in your layout and the appeal of your imagery. So until next time, bye for now.